Here's a quick tip. If you ever run into an issue where you don't have lights, no marker lights, no side marker lights, tail lights, or anything like that, verify that you have power going through your 7-way into your junction box. And you'll see a bunch of wires plugged in from your 7-way to the wiring into the actual coach going to your lights. Double check that you got power there. Depending on the amount of power you're putting out through your vehicle, it's going to depend on what you see up here. So if you're putting out 12 or less, you're going to see the same thing at the junction box. Now, if you got the correct voltage and you have the right connectors connecting and sending, signal to your wiring to your lights, then you're going to have your lights turn on. This customer doesn't have any rear tail lights going on. That's telling me that either there's no communication going through your 7-way, through your junction to your coach, or you have a bad connector somewhere. Luckily for me, this was just a bad connector going to the tail lights. So verify you got power. And if you don't, behind each marker light, you should have a bunch of connectors daisy chained back and forth to each other. So what daisy chained is, if you don't know, you got each light connected to each other, kind of like a tether, tied into each other, feeding power off of one light to another, to another, to another. Now, that back corner right there, that marker light right there, was not connected properly. All right, so back to what I was saying. Double check your connectors, because sometimes these connectors aren't very good. Sometimes the wires aren't properly connected. When I say everything is daisy chained, you got one wire, or you got multiple wires going from one light to another. So they're bouncing back and forth, feeding power to each light that's on the coach, instead of rather running separate wires to feed power to each light. They kind of tie it into each other to make it easier. So you can tell start to lose some connection there after a while. So yeah, once you start messing with them, you can see the lights kind of flicker. And you can tell when it's a tail light and it's not. See right there, turned off. Move it again, lights come back on. So yeah, these connectors, they don't really work very well unless you pinch down on these very, very hard. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna disconnect it and put a new one on there. And that way we can restore power back into the coach's tail lights. So what these are, this is the ground wiring to the coach. These are your power, your 12 volt there. So you can pinch down on those and make sure that that's connected properly. And then your ground, without a good ground, you're not gonna get any good 12 volt anywhere. So just be sure you got good ground and good positive wiring connected. All right. Now, I got a new connector here. Now you can see how those are. They have little blades in here that bite down on the wire, if you can tell in there. Once you threw the wire in there, you crimp down on it and it punctures the wire, so that way you can get a good connection. So what I did was I peeled a little bit of the top off of it so that I can kind of get a better connection. Now, if you've done this before, you have your own preference on how to do things. More power to you, but I've always had this work out for me, and never had any issues. So you can sometimes reuse the crimp, but I'm gonna put a new one on. And you make sure they're shoved in there real good so they stop, and then crimp down on it. You can use lineman pliers or any kind of plier set that will help you crimp down on it. And once you've crimped down, you should not be able to see any blue popping out of the edge right there. You should just see that little raised part right there, and you should see some silicone gel kind of dielectric grease sticking out. So push down on it. You should see some wiring there along there, and you should have a tight crimp. If all is connected properly, you should have your lights restored back up to there. Now, let's verify that all of the lights are on. So we do know we have tail lights. Let's make sure we got rear marker lights. Go to my trusty old electrical box, turn it on. Make sure marker lights on, and you should have all your lights back on. You got your blinkers, your tail lights, your top marker lights, along with everything else on the side. Yeah, double check that you got your connectors going so you can verify you got power to your lights. If you don't, you can't quite figure it out, take it to your service center and get it addressed. But we got this customer back going, and yeah, that's about it. Hope that helps anybody out. If you got any questions, if I talk too fast and you didn't quite understand me, leave a message in the comments, and we can figure what needs to be done for you.